Griff Durham from Reno, Nevada. He's a saddle expert. He probably knows everything about the Visaria Saddle Company there is to know. And Bill Reynolds, my friend from all the way from San Ynez, author and ex-president of the Historical Museum. And my son Morgan, who is on the board also. And then the other board members are here. Paul Isaka I see here. And who else is here? Oh, who?
George.
Oh, Chuck. Yeah, Chuck and Clay Dickens. And ex-president Peter Georgi. Hey, Peter. Peter's been there as long as I am, longer than me. I've been here 30 years. And Angela. And Angela's here too. So, and also I wanted to thank Alex. Alex is helping out at the bar there, and Alex is the key guy here around the museum. He's here every single day and takes care of the events that we have. So, and of course he's a good bartender too. I think you guys might like that. And then Rudy Castillo did all the cooking for us tonight, and we appreciate that. He did a really nice job. And then my wife Denise did the spread for the cheese and all that other stuff. And I want to thank my neighbor for helping me get my car started today. No. Anyway, Clay Dickens. Yeah, I got Clay. Clay Dickens again. Okay. Hey, Clay. Anyway, so I kind of wanted to cover that, but I did want to talk about the museum. We're going to talk about these saddles here, and this whole show is called The Saddles of Fiesta. And also David Bolton, El Presidente this year. He's here somewhere. And so the Saddle of Fiesta, we have all the three saddle makers that made these fancy saddles for Fiesta, trophy saddles. We have a 1933, a 35, a 46, a 54, a 56, and a 75. So Visaria Saddle Company made them all the way up until 1949 when Jellica started making them. But between that time, Dick May made them from 1954 to 56. And Alicia May is here. This is Dick's daughter. I kind of grew up on the hill with Dick when he was up on Victoria Street, and pretty special guy to me. And we have a nice little display over there called the Dick May Saddle Shop where he made these saddles. So we have two of these, and then the only Jellica saddles. So these were the three makers that made the trophy saddles for Fiesta. There was a Hollister class, the Tri-County Stock Horse class. Up until 1949, there were three saddles. And then after 1949, there were only two. So we're up to 75. We have a 1988 coming. We haven't found a lot of programs. If you know somebody that might have programs from the, Kevin, you got some in your basement, don't you? From the from the Stock Horse Show and Rodeo prior to 1976. And I've talked to somebody today that might have some too. So anyway, we're gonna talk a little bit about some of the other saddle makers here tonight, and Griff Durham's gonna tell us everything he knows about Visaria Saddle Company. On Griff. Yeah. Anyway, but the saddles, the Dick May saddles here were 1950, so you can kind of see how they changed. In the cantle in the back, they were higher there, and then in the 1950s, this is kind of the way that they were made. I did forget these saddles over here briefly, but this is a Visaria Supreme that belonged to Selsby Spalding, and he owned the Tecolote Ranch and bought it in 1928 as Winchester Canyon, and all those houses are down there now, and he owned from the back of the canyon to the beach. And so a large part of our collection out in the museum belonged to him, and that's why we have such a nice collection, in addition to Dwight Murphy saddles that are graciously on loan from the Santa Barbara Historical Museum. Dacius, thank you very much. And then we have two of the Sunburst, or one of the Sunburst saddles that belonged to Selsby Spalding's wife, and then what we call the Ricard saddle that's full of field silver. This Muccia saddle, Bill Reynolds is going to give us a little overview about the evolution of saddles and things like that. So, oh yeah, that's right, the raffle. See, I never have a list of what I'm going to do, but now I got my son here. See, I'm a lucky guy. And you really have to wonder about museums today, and I don't know if you're involved and nonprofits, but I can't imagine you live in Santa Barbara and not be involved in a nonprofit of some sort. Anyway, so you know what's going to happen to museums like this. So I'm very fortunate that he came to me 6 years ago and said, "Hey, Dad," he said, I got some extra time, I can help you out. So, but anyway, he's here today and appreciate that.
Hey, Dylan.
And yeah, it's important, you know, because this collection here is just, it's unbelievable. That saddle was made in 1850. And then I gave you the dates on some of these other saddles. That's 1927. You know, they're almost 100 years old, and look at them. They're gorgeous. We all gave you a ticket. I hope everybody got a ticket. This is you know, like a free food and a free raffle because we didn't charge anything for it. But this is a great picture that a Western artist named Joe Malazzo did for us. And it's a print of this saddle here. And it's really, really nice. It's signed and numbered. So did everybody get a ticket?
Yep.
You want to do that now?
Tom, you're not giving away the saddle?
You want the saddle? Okay, wait a minute. I want the saddle, Dylan. No, you. Dylan's picking it up.
733-192.
733-192. Oh, he's not here.
Draw again.
192. 733-192. There you go.
Yo!
It's Royce's.
Oh, Royce, did you win?
Royce's ticket, yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. Yeah. And then Mike Danley, another board member that's here. So we're just going to spend the rest of the night just kind of. Oh, yeah, and Phil Unander. See, I'm sitting there looking at him, and he's going, "Hey."
I get that a lot.
Hey, dude. Okay. Anyway, so that kind of covers where we're going to go with this show tonight. And so Dylan's going to, what do you need? Oh, Dylan's going to give you a little overview of the Jellica Saddle Company. And everybody knows that Jellica closed in 2019 on Delavina. Yeah, that's the street. And that sign was in front of the store forever. We have pictures of it over here when it was on a pole sign, and then the city came along and said, "No, you can't have a pole sign anymore."
No, I was on the sign committee when we made an exception to allow that sign to stay there.
They'll put it on the side. So you're the one that took down all the signs. Hey, you guys want his name? I know where he lives. Yeah. Anyway, so that, but you know, I mean, if you look at the pictures of State Street with all those pole signs from back in the day, and then you look today, it's much nicer. We got all those signs. We're going to put them out in front anyway. So. But anyway, here's my son Dylan.
Thank you. All right, I'll just give a little historical overview on Jedlicka's just real quickly. Here we have the 1975 trophy saddle made by Jedlicka's. G.J. Jedlicka opened Christmas Eve, 1932 on Delavina Street, which was actually Hollister Avenue at the time. And I don't know if he goes by G.J. or Jed. Do you know? I never met the guy. Jed. So, yeah, so Jed opened Jedlicka's 1932 on Delavina Street, like I said. He actually came here, came to Los Angeles, or Long Beach, sorry, to work for Buck's Shoe Company. His family came here in the 1920s. And after he worked for Buck's Shoe Repair for a little while, actually, his father was a cobbler and a harness maker in Nebraska. And when they came here, it was an easy fit for him to start repairing shoes. And so after he left Long Beach as a young man, he came up to Santa Barbara and worked for Michael Levy as a shoe repair guy for a while, got laid off, and then opened Jedlicka's. And began making saddles in 1940, or in the 1940s. He actually took over for Visalia after they left, and they kind of filled a niche for wealthy equestrian individuals who wanted really nice saddles and really nice boots, and he filled that niche well. And so, like I said, in the 1940s, he started making saddles. In 1949 was when he made the first Old Spanish Days trophy saddle, and he continued on until the mid-50s when Dick May took over for 3 years, and then Angelica again picked up making saddles in 1957, and then his last saddle they made for Old Spanish Days was in 1987. And so there's quite a few of them out there. We're not sure how many were made each year. It was either 2 or 3. We see pictures with 2, we see pictures with 3. 1949, we have pictures with 3 saddles. 1950s, we have pictures of 2 saddles, so we're not sure if the class has changed, so that would be why we need some of these programs to kind of fill these historical gaps that we're not quite sure of what happened at those times. Santa Barbara News Press is going to be another resource for me. I'm going to try to look through there and see if we can find anything there. But most of you are probably familiar with Cy Jenkins and the Jenkins family, and they actually took over Angelica. Cy was working with Dick May for a while at the old rodeo and was mucking stalls as a young man, and then made his way to Jedlicka's, walked in Jedlicka's in 1946 and became an integral part of the equestrian community working with Jedlicka's. He left Jedlicka's for a little while to go to college in LA, and then also served in the armed forces, came back, and then the rest is kind of history. He's been worked in Jedlicka's until they closed, I guess, in 2019. The shop is still open in Los Olivos. That shop was actually opened in 1977 in an old blacksmith shop. So it's a nice fit for a saddle maker and leather maker to be up in Los Olivos in an old blacksmith shop. So Cy, like I said, was mucking stalls as a young man, walked into Jedlicka's in 46 as a junior high school kid, and him and Jed, I guess, hit it off, and like I said, like the rest is history. They were making saddles, and yeah, let's see what I'm missing here. There's always something you forget when you're talking about. Yeah, so like I said, Jedlicka's closed in 2019. Joe Cy was running Jedlicka's now and has been for a very long time. He's been an integral part of the stock horse rodeo show since, what, 87, I believe, is when he became the chairman in the stock horse show and rodeo. And he was El Presidente in 2013 for the Fiesta, and also Karen and Cy, his parents, were honored vaqueros in 2008 at the stock horse show and rodeo. They've been involved in stock horse show and rodeo for many years, and anything equestrian in Santa Barbara, Jedlicka's were the people to go to. So that's really all I have to say about Jedlicka's. Yeah.
Juan Laura make that?
Oh, yeah, actually, I wanted to mention a couple saddle makers that worked in Jedlicka's. Forrest Shoup, Juan Lara, Art Hugenberger, and John Schnell were some of the major saddle makers that worked for him over the years. They actually were making saddles starting in the mid-1940s, and then they acquired the building behind Jedlicka's, which was at 210 Constant Street, and they started making saddles in that back room. They still have that room, or that building, which is full of all kinds of really neat stuff. If you ever get a chance to get in there, I did once, and I was kind of taken back. I actually saw a Santa Barbara Paint Factory can. I was sitting in there. My dad used to run Santa Barbara Paint Factory. And this sign here was actually on that saddle shop, and me and my dad were standing out there with Joe Cy one day, and we asked him, "What are you going to do with that sign?" And he said, "I don't have any idea." So we took it down, and there it sits, and it's got a great home, and we honor Jedlicka's as a wonderful piece of Santa Barbara history. So, yeah.
Neon sign in Santa Barbara.
As far as I know,
102.
yeah.
There's one at Santa Barbara Travel and that one.
Is that right?
And now that one's gone.
There you go.
There's one at the Riviera Hotel.
Yeah,
Riviera
Riviera.
Hotel.
Yeah, Blue
Was
skies.
it one of the Biltmore too,
Blue
or going
sky.
towards the Biltmore?
Oh yeah, Bill. Yeah.
That's what I heard. He's up from Honduras, right?
Tia.
And son, yeah.
Saw him up at the Red Barn, Tuesday afternoon.
Oh, nice. Yeah, he's
He's gonna hang out for about a month, and then go back to Honduras.
oh, that's wonderful.
Is he staying up there, John?
He's hanging out, helping his son for a month. Then he's going back to Honduras where he can live, what you might say, quite inexpensively.
Oh, yeah, Honduras, I know.
He's the mayor down there, I think.
Does anybody have any questions about Jedlicka's, or any more comments? Always happy to hear some interesting history.
Thank you, Dylan. Okay, on the saddles, when I wanted to cover a couple things on this 1933 that we got from Peter and Cindy Noggle. This one here, we have on loan from Lenny Hall. She's here today. She's a member of the Ontiveros family who won the saddle back in 1935. And then we have the 1946 that Griff Durham found at a show up in Elko, Nevada. So, I mean, if a saddle, Santa Barbara saddle in Elko, Nevada. I don't know how I got there, but it's back here anyway. And then J.J. Hollister gave us this Dick May saddle. It's a 1954. And then this 56 we found up at Rancheros that a guy was selling for a woman that was another wife of a guy anyway. I don't know what to call him, but anyway, that saddle was never used. I mean, that's a brand new saddle. And then Leo Cristofaggi got this on loan for us from Tyke Minetti and a famous ranching family in Santa Maria. That's it, that's north. Yeah. Anyway, so, but we're fortunate to have these saddles, to have this many saddles in this place at one time and almost covering it.
Manetti's ranch is in Casmelia. Right below Casmelia.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they're up in Santa Maria now. Tyke lives up there at Tepiscate now. Yeah. And Leo told me that. That's the only reason I know. That's what I know for sure. Leo. Anyway, all right, here, Griff Durham. A big hand for Griff Durham. Griff Durham from Reno, Nevada. Again, Griff came here in the year 2000. We had a saddle show. He did his presentation at the California stock saddle. Yeah, but anyway, tonight we're going to hear about the Visalia Saddle Company because the Visalia Saddle Company was in Santa Barbara at one time, and I won't say everything. Thank you, Griff.
I owe a real debt of gratitude to these guys because I had agreed to do a saddle show at the Casa de la Guerra when it was reopened after the refurbishing. And I had made all kinds of promises because I was acquainted with the collection of the Historical Society. And when I came up here to organize, I was told by the powers that be that I couldn't have anything from their collection. They were upset that the Trust for Historic Preservation was treading on their territory. And Peter and Tom said, "Oh yeah, you can have our four Loomises," and with that as a critical mass, it attracted some other contributors with interesting saddles. And the title of it was Santa Barbara Saddles, 19th century Santa Barbara saddles. And we had Loomis and Forbes and Rafour, and it was a pretty good show. Anyway, they've been at the top of my list of good guys since then. Anyway, Visalia or Santa Barbara has a long, illustrious history of saddle makers. In the 19th century, Sherman Loomis established his shop in 1857, and he was never without competition after that. There were Morenos, there were the Forbes, the Rafours. So the saddle making firms in Santa Barbara were capable of supplying the needs of Santa Barbara horsemen, ranchers, cowboys, vaqueros. The Sherman Loomis died in 1886. His sons ran the shop until 1898 when they sold to the Tomlinson brothers. When the Tomlinson brothers closed their shop in 1921, it was the last saddlery in Santa Barbara, at least as listed in the business directories, for at least a decade and a half. Ironically, it was during this period, the 20s and early 30s, that you had an expansion of demand for this type of saddleries. You had gentlemen who had made their fortunes in industries that had nothing to do with ranching, retiring and buying parts of old land ranchos and becoming, assuming a ranchero lifestyle. There was Dwight Murphy, Jack Mitchell, Spalding, and you had the establishment of Rancheros Visitadores, and there was no place locally to buy saddlery. So the obvious solution was to buy it from Los Angeles, where you had Bryden Brothers, who made great saddles, Lichtenberger Ferguson, and Bolin, or San Francisco. And it was the venerable Visalia Stock Saddle Company that attracted most of the customers. Wright Murphy and Spalding in particular were really good customers. They had Spalding's Tecolati. They had special dies made by Shazlines for the owl, which you'll see on some of their saddles. Dwight Murphy raised Palominos, and he was apparently, when somebody bought an expensive animal from him, a Visalia saddle went with it. But so this whole period, well, as Tom said, that also when the horse events were established at Pershing Park associated with the Fiesta, Visalia was chosen to do the trophy saddles. And it wasn't just these guys. I mean, anybody, the customer list at Visalia of Santa Barbarans was read like a who's who of Santa Barbara. Tom Stork was a customer, city manager. So yeah, Stanwood saddle, Visalia saddle in the collection here. So in 1936, Ed Boreen, who was on the board of directors of the California Rodeo in Salinas, and a good friend of Lee Bergen, who owned the Visalia, told Bergen that the shop next to him in El Paseo, number 16, was open, was vacant and looking for tenants, and he convinced him to move to open a branch store here. And so Bergen, when the show was over in Salinas, he moved his display up to number 16, and he was open for business in August for the Fiesta. There was no production done in that shop. It was strictly an outlet for the full range of goods, hats, chaps, horse gear, manufactured in San Francisco. The shop operated there until I believe it was the fall of 1940 when it was moved to State Street, I think 1308, a really elegant looking shop with balconies and stairways up the side. And then the difficulty getting materials and gasoline made the operation of the branch stores. There was a branch store in Palm Springs and one in Oakland also, and the branch stores were all closed in late 42. So that ended the Visalia's relationship with a branch store here, but they continued, as Tom says, to make the saddles until 1949. They left in 42, and I believe that the first time Jedlick is listed under harness and saddlery in the business directory is 1943. So they did fill the gap left by the departure of Visalia. Of course, they continued to have customers here. Murphy continued to buy from them. Spalding did. And that's about all I know. Are there any questions?
Who made the saddles for the Gene Autry, Roy Rock, and all the Hollywood guys back in the day?
In the day,
Yeah, who made those saddles?
you know, I understand that Bryden Brothers made the first saddles for Bolin. And he did the silver, and then he started manufacturing his own saddles. I don't know that any of the San Francisco shops got in big into the B Western movie. I don't know of any Vicelias. I'm certain there must have been among Western film stars, but I can't think of any offhand. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Griff. Fantastic. Talking about Visalia saddles, these three right here are all Visalia saddles that were used in the Fiesta parade. And Griff had mentioned that if you were a friend of Dwight Murphy's and you bought one of his Palomino horses, you got one of these saddles. There's three of them in sequential numbers, which you never see, of 1880, 1879, and 1878, all owned by the Historical Museum. And again, you know, we're lucky enough to have this one and then a couple others in our collection that we have on loan from them. And then Sylvie Spalding's Sunburst saddle there, and then his Visalia Supreme. So Bill Reynolds, from all the way from San Ynez, and Bill's an author. He wrote the Jody Young book, and a saddle book, and a hat book, and a book about me. And,
Well, thank you. I'm going to take us back and sort of tell us how we got here in 5 minutes.
Make it longer.
That's perfect. We are very fortunate in this county to have 3 historical museums so focused on this part of the life that was here. And to show the cohesiveness of that, we have executive directors from all of the museums here tonight. We have Dacia Harwood from the Santa Barbara Historical Museum, Teresa Castillo from San Ynez, obviously the venerable Uncle Tom. And there's board members here, and the whole point is that everybody is very supportive of each other to get this story out as to how important the vaquero culture was here in the county and certainly on the Central Coast. All of these saddles responded to specific needs. And because we had so many of the land grant ranches after the mission lands were effectively given away to military people from the heart of Mexico City. And it really started in the mid 1700s after the Portola and Dionzex searches that came up here, and priests were brought along with them. The mission culture started, went through very strongly through the 1820s. In the early 1830s, the mission lands were kind of doled out to favorite people that were primarily from the military in Mexico. And from that period, from let's say mid 1830s to the mid 1860s, when we had the terrible floods and drought, where over 1 million cattle died, that 30-year period was the golden age of the vaquero. And saddlery started out, if this cover was off, this mochila cover, which effectively translates to pockets, kind of like a backpack. You'd see a wooden tree wrapped in rawhide, minimal rigging, and that's what the Mission Indians would use. They were very poorly made, probably so that they wouldn't take off with them. They'd probably fall apart if they got too far. But as this culture of the rancho continued on, it naturally went to the elites, the dons, the owners of the ranchos, who wanted to have more uniqueness to their saddlery. So you started to see tooling like this. And obviously, as it went along, it became even more important, and it reflected nature, the area that they lived in. And the silver that came beyond that, most of it came up from Mexico. It was highly influenced by Native American culture because they had coin silver to work with, which is an alloy of effectively 90% silver and copper, so it was very soft, very easy to work. And it wasn't really until we started to see, frankly, the motion picture, where it really became very popular. We were talking about Bolin and Visalia, the Keaston brothers, the Keaston Brothers Saddlery, and they had people work for them. But it really, the Shazline family, Robert Shazline, which was started in the late 1800s, which started out as a badge company and a novelty company. These conchos, which were appearing from Native American culture, started to become very popular and being used. You look at this Visalia, and this is probably mostly the Shazline, where there is this sunburst pattern, and there is a saddle like this over in San Ynez that belonged to Jack Mitchell. It always was kind of about, well, how can I outdo the other guy? How can I get my horse to operate as easily as possible with the least amount of pressure? How can I look as bitchin' as I can when we're going from ranch to ranch, helping our neighbor ranchers bring cattle in and continue this life? So we see with the Fiesta, this really a huge celebration. Even an earthquake wouldn't make it go away. And we were very fortunate to have people like Ed Maureen and Dwight Murphy and Jack Mitchell and people who could afford to help keep this all going. They were very successful. It became a huge attraction. And the parade, which at one time, I guess it still is probably the largest equestrian parade in California. And it still celebrates that vaquero culture, because you really have to look at it, that this thing only lasted for 30 years. But during that 30-year period, this flourished because of really three reasons. Ranching in this area there was seas of grass, there was plenty of time, there was plenty of water. So the workers, the vaqueros, had time to kind of make their horses better, make their gear better, and in turn, they made themselves better. And as all of that moved on, after these horrible natural disasters in the mid-1860s, after statehood, after the gold rush in '49, at that point in time, in fact, in San Francisco, that was Maine and Winchester Saddlery started in 1949. Timing is everything, because everybody needed saddles, everybody needed pack things, everybody needed harness. And most of these companies started as harness makers, shoe repair, anything you could do with leather. And they evolved smartly when they started to see that there was a desire for this kind of embellishment, and they would bring in silver workers to help have that happen. Ed Bolin was he was a savvy guy. He went bankrupt 5 times, but he was a savvy guy. He knew what people wanted. One of the other makers was Gilmore. Gilmore made a lot of Autry saddles early on. And he did a lot of casting of silver. But this hand tooled stuff, I mean, just example, these candle ropes. You know, you come up here and you see it and you try to find the seam. And usually these things are done in parts. It's kind of like fitting parts of a snake together. Because for every one that worked, 4 didn't. Because it's just the amount to get that around there and fit it even the smooth ones these were incredibly labor-intensive things. Could you have one made today? You betcha. What would it cost? You really don't want to know. Simply because there's very few people who have the skill to be able to do these things and put them together. Could you automate that? Could you have trees made? You know, it's like when the surfboard industry changed from hand shaping things of foam into injected molded planks. Could you do that with these? Sure, but I'm looking at the demography of this room, you probably wouldn't want it. You'd want something handmade like this. And we are just so fortunate to be able to come here, to go to San Ynez, to go to Santa Barbara Historical Museum, and really get a chance to see, you know, who were the first persons that lived with these things, put a foot in the stirrup, and rode out every morning before dawn. To hear them talk and to see the glorious condition they're in, we're really very fortunate, and I can understand why Fiesta is so popular. So I hope that gives you a little insight into the origins of this.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate it. Yeah. The other thing I did want to mention is the museum's been here 50 years. And that's unbelievable that we've been able to survive that long in this town. And especially with our collection. We have many more saddles in our collection out in front there. We have Clark Gable saddle, a Cisco Kid saddle, one that belonged to Leo Corio and some others. A couple other displays that we have out in the front. If you have time sometime to come by and visit the museum, we're here Monday through Friday from about 9 to 3. And we have some displays out there called the Santa Barbara History Makers that have different people, about a minute and a half of video, talking about Silsby Spalding, Dwight Murphy, and Dixie Thompson, who ran the Arlington Hotel for Colonel Hollister back in about 1889, somewhere right around there. But anyway, so have something else to drink, have something else to eat, and we'll be around to answer any questions that you have, but we appreciate you coming. Thank you very much.